My experience with PlayStation's recent open world Horizon Forbidden West, while visually one of the craziest things I've ever seen, it was overall a bit of a tedious experience to me. And Xbox's most recent success of an open world being Halo Infinite's campaign, while fun as hell, the overall game as a whole still felt kind of incomplete. But now we come to Nintendo with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is one of the most anticipated games of the year, no question, if not the most. And the reviews for the game are out, and I have fully listened to / read around maybe 5 or so reviews, kind of skimmed a few others, so I've gotten a good picture of the grasp of what the overall media is thinking of the game. And while everyone had faith going into this, you know, like, it's gonna be a sequel to Breath of the Wild, like, of course it's gonna be great, it's from Nintendo, I was cautiously optimistic, because it's hard to live up to something as high of a bar that Breath of the Wild left, and especially in terms of just open worlds as a whole, not even just Zelda or Nintendo. But you know what? I was wrong, because it sounds like Tears of the Kingdom did it. It got perfect scores from IGN, Inverse, RPG Site, GameSpot, Destructoid, Nintendo Life, CG Magazine, VGC, VGC 24/7, Games Hub, Comics Book. It's a lot of 10 out of 10s. But there's some things that people said in these reviews that I think is worth talking about in terms of the grand picture of things, instead of strictly speaking just Zelda. But, you know, let's talk about what Zelda did. And if you want to join a group of fellow fun game speculators, consider subscribing. Well, from what I've gathered from the 5 reviews I thoroughly listened to, there is some really neat nuggets here. But there's one point in particular that I think is really the heart of this video. The littler nuggets though, the story all around is much stronger this go around, which is really nice to hear, because the first game, it felt like the story was, you know, there in the background. That's probably the case for this game too, but it's nice to hear people say, hey, this one has a story, so that's cool. The combat and situations you get in because of the creativity that the game allows gets hilarious. A lot are even comparing it to like the Looney Tunes of just seeing your things you put together just unfold in the worst situations, or even just doing wacky stuff like putting bombs on your sword so you hit somebody and you'll blow you both back. The amount of combinations that you could do with the new fuse mechanic and other things just leaves this playground for you to explore and to thoroughly experiment with, just kind of leading to endless opportunities. And speaking of kind of daunting situations, the world is massive, which the first game alone was already crazy, but now there's it's as I thought, you know, it's as I was speculating with you before, there's 3 layers of this game. There is the upper skies, there is the middle ground, which we played in the first game, but is also different now. But yes, there is that underworld. This is the crazy part. Even though this is a Nintendo Switch only title, somehow the Switch is able to run you as Link falling from the sky area all the way to the middle area, and you could still keep going through a hole that'll lead to the underground area. Somehow a Nintendo Switch game can seamlessly load all that as you're falling. That's insane. But we're not really here to gush about Tears of the Kingdom, but rather a kind of big quote that I heard, and it was specifically IGN's review.
One of the most important lessons that very few of the games inspired by Zelda since 2017 seem to learn is that a blank map is more powerful than a full one. You have to mark down points of interest you see or hear about in the world yourself, and filling it to the brim with your own goals is so much more natural and rewarding than being handed a checklist of waypoints right away.
This very point is how I would say Elden Ring may have become my all-time favorite open world game after Breath of the Wild, which was the previous one before it. See, recently we're all lecturing Redfall as, you know, an Xbox first-party exclusive that's got that $70 price tag for, yes, having technical problems, being one of those next-gen titles, but it was an open-world game. It's the first open-world game by Arcane, but the problem with it was just bad core game design coming through it, while it also just not feeling ready. But how come Nintendo gets away with charging $70 for a game like this that's running on a system that is really not even more powerful than the PS4 or Xbox One was? The reason for that is because of great core game design. Horizon Forbidden West was nominated for Game of the Year last year, and it was an experience I did enjoy. It was one of my most anticipated games for PlayStation when it was releasing, and while it is a gorgeous open world full of things to do and some interesting hunting-like combat that is engaging, it just felt so much like they couldn't trust me, the player, to find things to do in it. They filled the map with so many waypoints of things to do. Hey, there's a side quest here. Hey, there's a collectible over here. Hey, there's a thing to do here. Hey, there's a thing to do here. Hey, this is how you might solve the puzzle. It didn't trust me, the player, to make my own experience in this game, but rather is trying to guide me on what to do. That's from the PlayStation side, and from the Xbox side of things, their most recent success of an open world, I would say, is Halo Infinite's campaign, and while it is not visually as appealing as Forbidden West, I personally had way more fun in Infinite's open world because, while shorter, it felt much more like I am still in control of this experience and can go about it however I wish to. Now, it still had the waypoint problem, absolutely, but there was a lot of hidden things that it rewarded me, the player, for just finding out. But the problem with that game as a complete package, it still didn't feel like it was the complete Halo game that we have had in previous entries. Now, both these games reviewed well and are good examples of open worlds, but they just aren't the thing that makes it that 10 out of 10 masterpiece. But then we come to here, with the previous Breath of the Wild, with Elden Ring, and now with Tears of the Kingdom, as these games that are so well designed at their core, and that was the thing they focused on, making the world full of things to do, and the player with many options to go about it, and letting them go any direction they want, do not worry about it, and they don't have the best graphics out there whatsoever. There's a reason Outer Wilds, this very small indie game, became one of my favorite games of all time, as this game that just cuts you loose in it to try to figure out how exactly do you beat it and how do you want to go about doing that. It 100% trusts the player to make that experience their own with the game that they themselves have designed. Breath of the Wild had a similar experience like that, where you are just cut loose into this world that the game has been designed for you to do. It's complete, it's feature rich, it has things for you, the player, to totally customize however you want to go about it. And as that quote suggested, in the 6 years since Breath of the Wild has come out, it seems like a lot of big publishers haven't quite learned the lesson that we really hoped Breath of the Wild would do. So the question is, Tears of the Kingdom going to be the pivotal example that could leave these three big pointers? I think that could lead us into a good generation going forward. And what the industry can potentially learn from this is, one, good game design is always better than great graphics. No matter how great Hellblade 2 looks, if that game is not fun to play, then it's not going to leave a big impact on folks other than just its visuals. When a game at its core is super fun to play, then it is something that's going to stay with you. If Horizon Forbidden West, the most visually stunning game I've ever played, had game design like Halo Infinite's, where I just had fun playing it over and over, that game would have been fucking crazy. But if I had to pick one or the other, visuals or game design wins every time. And it's how Nintendo continues to keep being the company that they are. They don't make great graphic games. They just make games that are at their core super fun to play. And that's how they've just been able to do their own thing and not compete with PlayStation and Xbox. Second point is, trust a player to make their own fun rather than telling them what to do. When a player dives into the game, they are ready to have their experience of the game. Maybe it's a cinematic style thing like Uncharted or something where you are guided on a linear path. And if that's the way the game designed, then all power to you. But if you're going to fill a game with filler or other things to do, let the player themselves come across that so they feel like they found it. They achieved that. They weren't told to do it and did it for someone else that told them to. They themselves have the reward of experiencing something that they only did because their natural curiosity led them to that. And because they did find that and because they did do that thing, they're going to want to do more of it. And three, complete games are worth it if the vision is achieved or good at least. If through the process or mock reviews the game just seems like there is no saving it, then I understand. But if a game seems like it has strong potential, it's looking good, it feels good, it's been getting really good perception in the previews, in the mock reviews, then you might want to consider sitting on it a lot more instead of just bad ones, because that's going to be hard to fix. But if something is good and shaping up, then you gotta give these people time. This isn't me preaching for, delaying every game, but just in this modern era of release it and we'll fix it in post that we have seen a lot, especially from AAA developers. It's a practice that I hope Tears of the Kingdom really shines light on. There's some point I want to do a video about how Halo Infinite, I truly think when Season 4 passes around, it is going to be the complete game that many people wanted Halo Infinite to be at launch, but we're getting that, almost 2 years later and 4 seasons later. That shouldn't be a standard practice. There's business reasons why it probably happens, that makes sense, but Nintendo becomes this example of what a fully complete game can be, where we release it, we want the player to have their experience with it. There might be content, but this is basically the game that we wanted to release, and we got it running the best it can be. Here you go. And then you see this list of reviews that just kind of prove what that kind of patience and love can do. So before you play the next Zelda, make sure you play everything you can, because it sounds like you are just going to be stuck in it, and I hope industry people learn from it. I'm currently trying to finish Jedi Survivor. I'm going to finish that thing before I start this, but what are you playing? What do you think? Are the industry going to follow this example? Probably not. Are graphics more important than game design? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to be geek proud. Awesome. And thanks for swinging by.